Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Heroic Efforts once again. Thank you all for joining us during this glorious holiday season, the season of Nosferatu. As you can see from the title of the episode, we are going to have a very, very timely release because, as of this recording, Robert Eggers' incoming masterpiece is only days away from being released. So we thought it might be fun to break from the tradition of this show and talk about a double feature of two absolutely amazing movies that need no defending whatsoever. But we are going to just talk about how awesome they are because, damn it, we're excited to go see Nosferatu. So thank you all for joining us once again. I am, of course, Andy Foreman, and I am sitting here with Mr. Martin Fisher.
I don't have a Nosferatu clip, so I had to work with what we got.
God.
It's okay. That's me when I see that the screening is sold out, that the IMAX screenings are all sold out. But we could not do this episode without also being joined by Mr. Nick Talamante.
Hey, what's happening, everybody?
I just realized it
Yes.
worked because Lily Rose Depp is in the new Nosferatu, so...
Oh, okay. Oh,
Connection.
synergy. It's tied in already.
I found a way.
Got this going? Oh, really? Really?
Really?
Sweet juice.
You know what? This is all an inside joke from a previous episode we recorded
not
that's
out
not going to go up until months after this one comes out. So stay tuned. This is we're bouncing around here in time. We're
Yeah, we promise
Yes,
the joke has context. It's not just insensitive.
Promise.
It has context.
Promise.
yes, exactly. No, trust me, it's funny. It's not just insensitive. It's funny. But
That's us. Yeah, that's heroic efforts right there.
this episode is going to try not to jump around in time because we're going to be talking about the two official Nosferatu films, and of course we have to start with the 1922 foundational masterpiece. But before we get into the film itself, we should just talk about the history of Nosferatu a little bit, namely the fact that Nosferatu is not an original movie. It is 100% a ripoff slash retelling slash unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is a movie that almost didn't exist because it's so similar that the Stoker estate sued and got all copies destroyed of the film. And the only reason it survives is because of a few secondhand copies.
Proving once again that copyright is a stupid thing, just like the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey movies have proven.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You could draw a direct line from F.W. Murnau to the Pooniverse. It's just...
What the fuck? The Pooniverse.
That's what it's called.
That's exactly what F.W. Murnau was thinking when he was framing up all the shots in his beautiful silent horror masterpiece. Was he was like, someday these characters are all going to be in public domain, and we can make slasher movies out of them, and we can have
Potter.
eviscerate people.
Winnie
Yes,
the Pooh, Blood and
exactly.
Honey 1 and 2, part of the Pooniverse, and you got
Yeah,
Bambi the
evil
Reckoning.
Pinocchio. The
Oh,
evil
Popeye,
Pinocchio.
Yeah. These are all movies that are
Popeye.
happening,
Yeah,
by the way,
exactly.
Nick. They're already been filmed.
Yes,
God.
exactly. It's coming out. So stay tuned to Redbox for those. But right now we are talking about F.W. Murnau's masterpiece. But yes. This is a movie that, if we're going to set the stage, we almost didn't see this movie.
Yep.
And because it survived off of a few secondhand copies, the movie has, for most of its history, looked like complete dog shit. And is almost indecipherable of what you're looking at. But there are still iconic images from it. So I have the, right here, actually, next to me, I have the Kino Lorber Blu-ray, which, ooh, it is beautiful. And I rewatched the film on this Blu-ray a few weeks ago, and I've never seen a silent era film look so good. Even the streaming stuff on Amazon Prime does not look as good as these restorations, and it really helps bring this into effect that this is like an actual film with a plot and a narrative and is using visual techniques to tell the story, because when I saw it on the little thin Dollar Tree bootleg fucking unauthorized DVDs that I had when I was a kid, it looked like shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
I think the first time I'd actually seen any like footage of Nosferatu, I want to say, was from James Rolfe's 2007 Monster Madness series, where he was highlighting movies the horror genre, and the first one was on Nosferatu. And you watch that video now because it was 2007 when that came out, and you're like, oh, 240p quality obviously doesn't reflect how the movie looks, and it's like, no, that's just how Nosferatu looked at the time. It looked like complete shit because it was off of bootleg secondhand copies essentially throughout decades. And they kept it's like, if you have a VHS tape and you're recording off of another VHS tape onto another one, onto another one, onto another one, the quality gets worse and worse and worse with each recording. That's what happened.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is we should just, as a brief aside, I'm glad you brought up Monster Madness, James Rolfe doing the Lord's work for the last 15 to 20 years of bringing attention to horror movies and celebrating horror online and, pioneering the video essay, which he must feel like Oppenheimer right now for creating that format. But, it's true, though, because, everybody knows Nosferatu. Everybody's seen some of the most famous images from it. Everybody's seen the SpongeBob episode. Yep. But there's very few people who have actually seen the film. So props to people like James Rolfe for recognizing that these are actual films with real stories that actually are going for something a little bit more, because this all sounds so obvious, but the silent era is, even by big film fans, very often disregarded, particularly in this day and age. So it's important to say that, F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu is a fucking amazing horror epic in its own right. And if you haven't seen it, you should probably stop this episode and just go watch it, because it's going to prep you for Egger's version so much better than we can.
Yes, 100%. Honestly, if you're one of those people, because I know plenty of people who are just like, I don't know what Nosferatu even is. How do I understand what's the story? And I'm just like, you watch any version of Dracula ever, that's Nosferatu.
Yes.
Count Orlok is just Dracula. I promise. It's just the same fucking thing again.
Yeah, but it's important because for the longest time I thought Nosferatu was a completely different thing than Dracula, because he looks so much different. And obviously it's a different title and whatnot, and different character names. But that's for the courts to decide. That's for the copyright courts in 1923 to decide. It is Dracula, but it focuses on different aspects of Dracula than other proper Dracula-named adaptations do, namely the plague metaphor that is inherent within even the original Stoker novel.
Yes, it is very much playing... Well, it's Dracula is very much the sexy foreigner. Oh, be afraid. Mm-hmm. This one is very much... Be afraid of the foreigner, they bring plague.
Oh, God.
Blah, I'm so sexy, and I'm filled with AIDS.
It's like catting, where it's like you just...
I like the dichotomy you put forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the contrast in the dichotomy Marty's put forward of just like Dracula. He's the sexy foreigner from Western Europe, and then Nosferatu's the gross, disgusting, plague-ridden foreigner from Eastern Europe.
This is the Lovecraft reading of Nosferatu of Dracula.
Truly. Very
exactly. But there's a reason...
people...
There's a reason that Nosferatu looks like a rodent, because he is 100% a metaphor for the rats that brought the plague over. And I think
just like
that there's
Irish. I'm Irish, I can say that.
I was just going to say, any more fucking 1920s propaganda that you want to drop in the chat before... Because you guys have no idea. I'm talking about F.W. Murnau, and Martin Fisher is turning it into fucking D.W. Griffith over here. And he's just like,
what's the difference? I'm kidding. Ooh, I mean, hey, this was filmed in Germany at a very particular time. Just saying. I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, birth of a Nosferatu over here.
Oh, thank you for that, Andy. That was good.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But there's a dichotomy, because it's a 100% a ripoff of Dracula and just a retelling of it. But there is enough leeway that it can kind of be its own thing and explore its own themes, which we'll get into right now after these messages from D.W. Griffith and fucking... I don't know. It's very late. I'm very tired. We're just going to talk about Nosferatu 1922 now.
Da 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 da. Let me tell you, I don't think. Okay, we brought this up earlier in the sense of like you can't ignore silent filmmaking.
No.
That whole era of film, because to go from silent movies to talkies, essentially, it's like watching an entirely different art form taking place. Because while you have the convenience of people talking in the talkies, and you understand, you hear their cadence, their speech, with silent films, the best you're going to get is a fucking title card will pop up with what they're saying, and you're just reading it as you are, basically. So a lot of the performance in a silent film is very pantomime. It is very over the top. It is very much trying to pull you in. And nowhere is that highlighted more than in the horror genre at the time. Because, I mean, this is a period where you got like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Nosferatu, Phantom of the Opera, Hunchback of Notre Dame, where big performances were what was selling these films. You still got the sequence of Phantom of the Opera with ripping the mask off, and you see the horrifying face of the Phantom. You know, there's a reason that scene is still memorable 100 plus years later at this point, almost 100 years at this point.
Not to sound like film Twitter.
Yeah.
But every frame is literally a painting.
Yes.
And what it is silent film is basically we have to make every shot as impactful as possible because, one, this extremely flammable film that we're using to make this movie costs an insane amount of money to develop. So every foot of film has to be worth it. Yes. Second off, again, you can put in little inner titles, but it is basically just being told completely through visuals. Yes. But also an important thing is I think, most people are at least aware of the Universal monsters, if not having seen them all. But the way people think about it, it's like, oh, horror started with Dracula and Frankenstein. Those were like the first horror movies. What's interesting to think about is that those were literally less than a decade out from Nosferatu. So if you watch Nosferatu cleaned up on a Kino Lorber Blu-ray, we are not sponsored by Kino Lorber, by the way. I'm just a very big fan of their products. We
would love to be.
Yeah, exactly. If you guys want to float us a check, that's totally fine. The thing is you watch it cleaned up and you watch it as it's supposed to be seen and you watch it with like the clear visuals and actually being able to see what's going on. There's not that big of a difference between Nosferatu and Dracula, Todd Browning's Dracula. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the techniques are exactly the same. Yes. It's just you can occasionally hear Dwight Fry and Bela Lugosi speak. Like in Dracula. Like Dracula is barely a talkie, is the thing. Like barely anybody's talking in that movie.
Well, it's funny to compare those two because Dracula as a film is so interesting because it is very obviously a very early talkie to the point that they don't have a music score through.
Exactly.
Almost literally until like you hear what is it the little wait that's not even in the movie actually it's just straight silence for most of it I believe if not the film.
With Dracula you mean?
Yeah, with Dracula
there's Swan Lake at the beginning.
There's Swan Lake at the beginning. After that complete silence. You are hearing the audio track just in the background the whole time. Yeah. So it's interesting to have that, but then in Nosferatu you have no voice, but you have the music to swell certain moments more so.
Right, exactly. And the thing is Dracula 1931 is actually a pretty good mid-ground between silent era films and talking films, because, Frankenstein 1931 doesn't have... I don't think Frankenstein has a score, from what I remember off the top. It might have, like, an opening score, like, for the titles, but it doesn't have a score through most of the film. But there's lots of conversation and lots of exposition being done through dialogue. Dracula, not so much. Dracula is a lot of Bela Lugosi moving across the frame, very much echoing Max Schreck's Nosferatu performance. Yeah. So it's an interesting way of, like... I view Dracula as almost like a remake of Nosferatu, in a way. Which I'm sure there's a lot of cinephiles. How dare you? Todd Browning was a visionary who channeled nothing. He came up with this all on his own.
Not to dip my toes in the discourse, of course, but Todd Browning, he ain't no F.W. Murnau. Okay, I think we need to set that record straight right
now. Not to dip my toes in the 95-year-old film discourse. Fucking go back to the... You're gonna go back to your little column in a newspaper and be like, I might have a hot take here.
Hot take section. Yeah, it's I like that's funny.
Right between the job ads where it just says none and obituaries where it's just half the city.
It's interesting because like I like that you bring up the comparison between Bela Lugosi's performance as Dracula and Max Schreck, because also I kind of feel like this is the first, or at least one of the very first films to have a long-running rumor about it. And that rumor was that people were so convinced by Max Schreck's performance, they could not believe that he wasn't an actual monster man. It was a long-running thought that, like, he must have been an actual vampire, to the point they made a movie about this rumor. It's great.
What movie is that? Bad Boy?
Shadow of the Vampire.
Ah.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Yes, but so the Nosferatu, we're not going to go through the plot because this is an easily available movie. Like you guys can all just go watch it. Yeah, watch Dracula or just go watch the movie, which you can find for free on any streaming service.
Yes.
But I think what's important about it is that it. Oh, I'm sorry.
And YouTube.
Yes, and YouTube, and probably just like you can literally probably just dig through old DVDs at your house and find them. Like literally every
copies of Nosferatu.
Literally every household probably has something with Nosferatu on it because it's been released so much. But
much like the rats that live in your cupboards, there's Nosferatu copies.
So, but the plot has a little bit more leeway. In a way, I think it simplifies the Dracula story a lot more. To the film's benefit, because the problem with the Dracula story is that there's a lot of stupid bullshit in the original novel that has been left out of so many different adaptations, rightfully so. Like blue flame that points to treasure and like weird subplots, and not that the novel isn't like a horror masterpiece. Obviously it is. But like I feel like the truncated, streamlined version of Dracula is actually the superior version of that story, a la Nosferatu. That's because here's the thing. You're talking to somebody whose favorite version of the story is Herzog's Nosferatu, which we will get to. But I'm also sitting here with someone whose favorite version of the story is Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which are the two diametrically opposed, like biggest opposite versions you could possibly have. And the thing is like Francis Ford Coppola is one of the very few people who actually took the opulence of the Stoker novel and actually made it work. You know, you could argue that Dario Argento did so with his version, but we will. Yeah, we will have that discussion with our inevitable Dario Argento's Dracula audio commentary track coming on April Fool's Day. But I feel like I've been talking a while here, but it's just because I fucking love Nosferatu so much.
Yeah, there's a reason that this legacy for this film has lasted for over 100 years at this point. It's such an amazing take on a novel, and honestly, like, God bless him for committing IP infringement to make something like this, because this is worth it.
Yeah,
you know, this is not like, you know, making your Superman fan film and casting yourself as Superman or whatever. You know, this is.
And even to point their weapons at me, and not the people who can't defend themselves.
No one's gonna understand this reference, but
no one's gonna not until this Heroic Efforts episode on it.
The view counts on that fan film are gonna go up. He's like, "Ooh, time for a sequel."
Oh, I hope. But
it's such a great take on the character, and I like that you bring that, because yes, I am the person that loves Coppola's Dracula. That is my favorite version. But one thing I really like about Nosferatu, just the not just this version, but the two versions I've seen, and what I assume is in the Eggers version, is that it does streamline the story to a degree where it's like, it's not so much about just like, you know, Jonathan's adventures in Dracula land, and then he comes back, and then, oh, here comes Dracula. It's going to take 3 fucking hours to tell this whole story. No, it streamlines it to a degree, and I like the perspective it takes, and we brought this up earlier, of the plague. This is not the Dracula who's come to woo your women. You know, he has come to basically kill everything. Every living thing around him is going to die because he is a pestilence. He is otherworldly in the same way that, yes, Dracula in the novel and a Coppola's version is otherworldly, sure. I mean, he turns into a freaking wolfman at one point.
Turns into a big praying mantis in the Argento version.
Giant praying mantis in the Argento version. And a room full of flies also in the same movie. You know, you have that version. But I like that he is very, and I think that's supposed to be, of course, reflected in the fact that he looks like a little rat man. He is very like, he's got his little long claws and everything. He's got his scraggly hair and all that. He's not, he's very much like in a world where a lot of vampire fiction is very much the attraction of the vampire, how hot the vampire can be.
The seduction.
And that's what makes it terrifying, is that you are seduced by something that then is going to kill you. This is very much a repulsion and knowing that it is coming for you anyway. You know, it is, and this is, I know this sounds like a joke, but it is very much a case of like, Dracula is the guy that's going to like try and hit on you at the bar, and he's a little pushy, but you know, he knows like, okay, there's certain boundaries you don't cross. Whereas Nosferatu is the guy that follows you outside of the bar, and now you got to find a police officer. It's the closest thing I can think of, and it sounds like a joke, but it's not.
I mean, I think that's pretty apt. Like the like comparison I can give people is like it's the HR meme. You know what I mean? Where it's like they say it's like almost the exact same story.
Yes.
But the first one is the Chad, and that's like Dracula saying the exact same like thing. Yeah. And then the second, the creepy guy that gets reported by HR is Nosferatu. Yeah. Like that's kind of the split.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like and you kind of hit something very important where. That's one of the biggest appeals for me. I like both versions, both Nosferatu stories and the Bram Stoker Dracula stories. I think they just do different things. Yes. I think they're telling two very similar tales about the same kind of creature, but they're doing it in very different ways. And I like that kind of contrast of Dracula is very seductive. You know, we talked about the opulence of Bram Stoker, and like this is a regal, aristocratic figure. You know what I mean? And the parallels and allegories. I think are really interesting, and it's why I enjoy both these different directions you can take this monster, because I like the aristocratic parasite that Dracula proper kind of represents of you know, invoking the kind of fear that peasant almost fear of like the rich lord coming down in the night and having his what is it, like the king's night, where like they would just steal your women away, you know what I mean? Then the also like in as modernity started to creep its head into existence, the fall of the monarchy and the aristocrats, and how that opulent wealth turns into like cobwebs of gold, you know what I mean, and the decayed corpse in bejeweled in royal robes and silks and things like that. That's an aspect I like about that interpretation of the vampire. But what I really like about Nosferatu, in addition to, I think Andy makes a brilliant point about simplifying that story, like they get straight to it, and as we've seen in this interpretation, in Herzog's, and eventually in Eggers, I really do appreciate, as Andy mentioned, the pace of which it gets on with the story. I think it's just a really good structure as a narrative. But speaking as like an allegorical representation, I love the disgusting decay that Nosferatu represents. That it's a literal just rat, like the Black Death manifest, this unnatural thing on Earth, this undeath. That's the biggest aspect I liked about it, because they're both immortals, right? But Nosferatu is undeath, where Dracula is undying. Nosferatu is undeath. It is just death incarnate, this being that should not exist, and its like very existence is just kind of a blasphemy against God and nature. So it just spreads darkness and decay, and instead of like corrupting in the way that Dracula or more like vampires in that vein kind of do in corrupting, like, you know, the hearts and minds and seducing people, this is like, no, it's literally just decay and disease it's spreading, you know, with the rats being the perfect vector and an analogy for it. I just really appreciate that aspect, that this is just this plague written thing that just creeps in the night, this pathetic, disgusting corpse that walks among us, and then it just unleashes this fucking bloat flies and rats everywhere.
Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I love the term that you use of like dusty cobweb gold at that point, where it's like every version of Dracula is living alone in this gross old dusty castle with like basically just sex slaves with him that have like no autonomy of their own. because he needs companionship, but they're not with him because they care about him. So it's like riches, it's it's women, it's all this kind of stuff that like power power is acquired for, but like none of it's pleasurable because he's been around for so fucking long that it's so old. And like, I'm not even saying this to be like punny, but it's like Dracula literally is only left with like an empire of dirt. Like when he tries to become part of people again, all he has is a bunch of boxes with his homeland's dirt in it. Dracula is power fantasy achieved and then lived with for like hundreds of years. It's very much like, not to use such a modern reference, but it's like Ozymandias in the HBO Watchmen show, where it's like, oh, like he's gotten everything he's ever wanted and he's bored out of his mind because there's no challenges or nothing. Same thing with Dracula, where it's like, yeah, you have riches and women and money and power and immortality. But what does that really get you if you're hanging around with a bunch of flies and bees that come out of their own little bee-sized coffins?
That's true.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Andy, because I was thinking the exact same thing. I don't think it's like too hokey to say like the Ozymandias thing, because that's literally where my mind went as well when I think of Dracula. I'm like, this is Ozymandias without the benefit of being able to like fade away into obscurity. This is Ozymandias if he had to stick around. Just this pathetic thing that has like, at a certain point that had all the power and the money in the world and nothing else, and purely nothing else. Like when people say like, don't be too materialistic, you can't take it with you. Dracula is like, yeah, you really can't take it with you, because even when you got it, eventually that shit like just fades, but you're still here.
Yes, 100%.
It gets real. Trust me, take it from someone who's nearing 30 in a room overflowing with comics and Blu-rays and like living the life he would have dreamed of. Living the life he could have dreamed of when he was 12 years old. Like, you're looking at this and you're like, this is awesome. But I can't afford a new car. Like, it's just like this is great, but like I can't afford a broom closet like of my own to live in.
And this is the difference, because Nosferatu is absolutely like the virgin meme. He's the virgin incel Nosferatu, and then you have like on the complete opposite scale, you have the Chad Van Helsing Dracula, who is just having a ball and fucking everything that moves. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? Nosferatu is that Dracula with another couple of centuries on him.
Yes.
Where it's like, this is so boring!
This is so boring! Have you no heart?
Literally every pussy known to man! I just want to settle down with a nice lady.
Why is he Italian?
I don't know. Blood.
Dario Argento, is that you?
It's Argento's Dracula. I forgot. Yeah. It's like
you were turned into a praying mantis, but you can't have happiness. What the fuck?
Why are you a CGI owl?
I can literally become flies, but
no, but they want to fuck 100 flies. Oh.
No, but they want
you don't understand, baby. I could literally become flies, go up inside you and vibrate.
No, but they want to fuck 100
I'm not one
flies.
fly, I'm multiple flies. I'm hive mind flies. So much I can do.
Nobody want to fuck 100 flies, but I do want to film my daughter naked. Thank you, Dario.
I was gonna say, if any of you think we're just being like our normal asshole selves, like this shit like literally happens in Dario Argento's Dracula, by the way.
Wow.
We're not exaggerating. No. Like that's what this madman put in that piece of crap. Anyway, let's get back to like the turn
of like, I don't care if he's underage.
God.
I'll pretend he's a vampire and he's been around for hundreds of years. He just looks like he's 16.
I love our Dario Argento doing the fucking the anime fan like logic of just like, no, they're not underage. It's a vampire. They're 10,000 years old. They're so cool.
Look, if I flew them to a specific country, then would there be a problem?
Good God.
Oh god, yeah. Well, I don't know how we got from like the greatest horror film ever made to fucking Dario Argento's creepy fucking naked daughter movie, but like,
but I think we can bring it back around. I love the sequence where he's carrying around his coffin just around town, and he's just going to his new home, and he's just walking around this coffin, and nobody is around him. He's just by himself through this empty city. He's just like, huh.
Yes.
Well, all right.
Well, we've talked about this before, where it's we talked about this off air, where Nosferatu is pathetic.
Yes.
So when he pulls into this town, and he starts killing everybody, and obviously exerting his power, and people are dying, and this plague has come here, he's still just a weird little rat man dragging a coffin through the city because he's like, God fucking damn it, gotta get the
gotta do this shit myself every fucking time.
Gotta get to Carfax Abbey before the sun comes out. Stupid bullshit. Like it's like. Yeah.
Why did I listen to the dealership and buy a 1980 Chevy? It's not working.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the difference.
Modern Nosferatu would be like driving around a Cybertruck with a coffin in it. It like wouldn't be starting. Blah.
He's driving around in a coffin in a Cybertruck? That's the same thing, Andy.
It's the same thing. Once he drives it through a fucking car wash, it will be.
It rains. He's fucked. He's like, no, I'm internally condemned. Oh, no.
I'm arrested inside and I can't die. So boring.
So boring. But I love that because it's like he is like this little rat guy who's just moved into the new town and immediately just kills people, and everyone else is already just repulsed by his existence anyway, so they don't want to be around him. The big difference between him and then you have like Gary Oldman's Dracula, who comes into town with a nice top hat, he's got a cane on, he's like, I'm gonna turn into a wolf and fuck some bitches, you know?
For him. He's a pimp.
He's a pimp. Nosferatu is not a pimp. Nosferatu is that guy where you're just like, call HR right now. He is smelling the toilet seats.
Yeah, Nosferatu has no motion. Absolutely no motion.
Because Nosferatu looks like a rat, so I could picture him by the toilet like.
What is it? Is it titties? Is it pussy? What?
Yeah, exactly. Would you get Nosferatu out of the ladies' room? He's literally going through the trash cans and finding the old tampons. Like,
I need blood.
Oh, no.
Just, you know how Kinski's version of Nosferatu has the two little fangs? It's just two tampons stuck up there.
Oh my god!
With a string?
Yeah, with a little string.
What's everybody looking at? Haven't you seen a Cybertruck owner before?
Oh my god!
Jesus.
Yes, I'm getting out of here as soon as I scrape the rust off of this Cybertruck and I can get inside. In case you can't tell, like, we're all delirious because it's like 1 week out from Christmas and the holidays has been taking its toll on us.
Woo! Barely surviving.
So, that's why we're talking about Nosferatu, because like him, we are all undead right now.
Truly.
Yeah, you know what? If you want to hear like a super serious scholarly take on Nosferatu, just Google like Roger Ebert's review of it.
Yeah, there you go. There's a million essays about this. Okay, it's a 102-year-old film now. It's okay, you know. But
we're here to tell you to watch it.
Yes,
we're here to tell you to watch it.
Here's some cool reasons why you should watch it. And also, one time Dario Argento filmed his daughter naked in a movie and released it. So.
One time? I'm pretty sure that's in a couple of movies.
Oh, Dario.
I was gonna say, did Dario's Mother of Tears refer to when the mother saw the movie? He's like, what did you do, you son of a bitch?
That's right, Asia. Rub the waters on your nipples. Yes, looking real nice there. Remember when you were a child and we did this? What?
Oh my god! It's not
right,
weird.
Like, you guys keep talking. I'm going to bring up the funniest fucking IMDb fact I've ever seen.
Okay.
Well, I'll say just the Fritophobia aside, I think just to have something like a little more serious and concrete about this, I'm gonna lay my cards on the table. I haven't actually seen the original 1922 Nosferatu. I have not seen it. I would have watched it.
Shame.
I know. Shame me. I would have watched it, but I got really confused and busy today, and I didn't realize we were covering this one. I thought we were going to talk about Herzog and the Eggers one. which makes way more sense considering that one hasn't come out, despite the fact that me and Andy have already seen it. But we'll get to that later. But I will say, from what I do understand, so I'll try to provide the perspective of someone who hasn't seen the movie but has experienced it through cultural osmosis. Like I think the majority. Exactly, I've seen the SpongeBob episode, so I know what it is. I know of it, just like I think the majority of people, in the world that are like aware of what Nosferatu is, but maybe have never sat down for the hour 20 silent film that it is. But from what I have seen and experienced of it, and the few clips I've seen, I am really impressed, especially seeing like snippets in, as Andy has pointed to, like 4K, where it's like not actually you can see it. It's actually visible. It's actually eligible. It's not like the fucking 100p potato quality that I think so many people are probably used to seeing clips and pictures of it from. So when you see those snippets, you're like, God damn, this looks like this got some sauce. You know what I mean? It's got a little motion to it. Like the cinematography is really, really well done, and I think that's why it stood the test of time, because as both Marty and Andy have alluded to, as a silent film, it really has to go above and beyond to present its visuals and its storytelling, and not just to present both the like narrative, but I think to be as evocative as possible. I think one of you guys mentioned earlier, every frame has to be a painting. Every frame has to count. You know what I mean? Like that old cliche, but it truly, like, that's facts though. It's true. It had to be like that. And I can absolutely see why this glorified IP infringement, why it has stood the test of time, because the imagery is really truly evocative. I love the shadow work and play, which Eggers makes a nice homage to, as we will get to later on. But I really do appreciate the kind of atmosphere and the tone the film is able to set. Again, just from my experience of the few clips I've seen, what I have seen, they were cooking back then. Like, I'm not gonna lie, 1922, they was popping off, man. Like they had, like, again, the shadows, like him kind of like skulking through the night, and then his reflections of like the shadow and like his silhouette, his creepy ass silhouette with his hands and his kind of hunched posture, like reflecting against the wall, and it kind of like snaking against it. Like they do a lot of really interesting stuff with the shadow work in this film, and that's what I really appreciate about, from what I can glean with the visuals, is that again, this is a silent film, but it's also not in color. You know what I mean? So they had to really play around with this color palette, or lack thereof, and like the monochrome kind of like black and white and the grays and all of that. And I think they really nailed, from what I can tell at least, back then, being able to do something that is both evocative but working with basically two sticks and some pig shit. You know what I mean? Like they did not have much in terms of tools, but they were able to present something that makes it a definitive and clear interpretation of this character. And at this point, I believe stands on very firmly its own 2 feet, in contrast to Dracula. This is gone. I think we're a century past the point where Nosferatu can really just be written off as like just a cheap Dracula knockoff. You know what I mean? As like a novel thing. It's not. I think it's definitively like it's still a iteration or of like Dracula. It's still a vampire story, but I very much think it stands on its own 2 feet, especially after Herzog, and even more so clearly with Eggers.
Well, just like with Cabin of Dr. Caligari and I believe The Man Who Laughs as well, these are films that benefit from German expressionism. They play up this warped reality. Is Man Who Laughs from Germany? I forget. Or is that a U.S. creation?
Oh God, I gotta look that up.
Okay, I'll just say the Golem, because I'm pretty sure the Golem is
Conrad
also...
Fight Center.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure Golem is also German. Where they benefit from this hyper reality, and it benefits the performances as well, because like I said earlier, you do have these very over-the-top operatic performances, because that's what you need in a silent film, because that sells the movie, I think, a lot better. But because of that, you have to heighten reality a little bit. I mean, Cabin of Caligari has a lot of those moments of, like, staircases that lead to nowhere, buildings that are, like, crooked and don't make sense. They're clearly painted, but, they create a world on their own, and Nosferatu is very much like that. But what's cool is that Nosferatu also uses just German towns, the landscape, an old factory warehouse that nobody was using is his house that he moves into. And that's so creative. And I love when the Germans express themselves through art and not genocide. I had to get it in at the very end. I'm like, should I start with that or leave that at the end? You all good there, Andy?
Yes, I am. It's such a perfect insert. How do you really follow that up? All right, we're going to the Herzog version, I guess.
What was the IMDb fact that you were totally looking for and not just dicking around on your phone for 5 minutes?
No, I have it. It's right here. And also I was looking up The Man Who Laughs. It's an American film directed by a German expressionist director. So it might as well be German expression.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, here's the fact from Dario Argento's Dracula.
God damn it.
where Dario Argento filmed his daughter naked. Director Dario Argento directed a nude scene with his daughter Azia Argento in this and in some of their previous collaborations. When asked what it's like performing naked for her father, Azia pointed out that they don't have hang-ups about nudity like the US and other countries. Also, she and her father are professionals and artists. They are focused on doing what is right for the story, no matter what it is. I think Azia Argento wrote that and put it on IMDb. And it's funny because you hear that like, oh, what's right for the story? She's literally just taking a random bath in the movie. Yes. Like, there's no fucking point of it in it at all.
They're all soaped up, and they're just like, it's for the film. This is for art.
Yeah.
And not because we are burning the Italian mafia's money, and all the Italian cinema is depending on this movie.
Yeah.
Also,
but yes, getting back to Nosferatu.
That too.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Back to the other creepy rat man. His face. I'm making Andy cringe so much in this episode. It's great.
I know, it's fucking hilarious. But yeah, just getting back to F.W. Murnau's masterpiece, Nosferatu, you should watch it. It's available everywhere.
Yes.
It's literally one of the most proliferated and ripped off and bootlegged movies ever made. Like I said, I originally got it on a thin little Dollar Tree DVD that they would have down in the bottom shelf of Dollar Tree. Remember those thin little DVD cases?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, for $1. I got that. I got the first 2 episodes of The Lone Ranger. I got the Three Stooges cartoon. I got fucking Fleischer Superman cartoons. And I got House on Haunted Hill. So in case you wondered what a fucking party at Andy's house seemed like
that's
like
I got it. I remember buying like 10 of those one time at a 99-cent store. So that's how I got Nosferatu. And then I also got Tales from the Crypt and the one Vault of Fear?
That was at Dollar Tree?
No, 99-cent store, even better, and probably more illegal. So they had that. They had a shit ton of kung fu movies that I got too from the 60s and 70s. And like, oh, it was such a great find, man. I was so happy that day. I'm like, convincing my grandparents who were born, around the time Dracula came out, be like, no, yeah, I want this many movies. Yeah, I got $10. Let's do it. So.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I went to a Dollar Tree a couple years ago and I got Josh Trank's Capone on DVD. So,
God,
that's at least worth 15 Capones. Come on now.
All right, we're giving F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu 10 Capones out of a possible 10. Out of a possible 10. We're giving him 10 Tom Hardy with a carrot in his mouth. I was going to say
it's going to be 10 cuts of Tom Hardy shitting his pants back to back.
What? Ugh, smells like Dario Argento's later career in here.
Oh my god, I give this 10 praying mantises out of 10.
Yes, exactly. That's
I give this 10 uncomfortable nude scenes with your own daughter out of 10.
Oh, I'm not perverted, I'm just Italian.
Well, we have to talk about another pervert now.
Oh, yeah. We're moving on to Klaus Kinski's version of Nosferatu.
Nosferatu, the vampire. A film unlike any Dracula film ever made. Nosferatu, the vampire.
If we're going to get more serious here, boys, we got to get more serious talking about the Herzog Nosferatu. Because this is one of the fucking greatest films ever made in the history of horror cinema. I discovered this much later in life. And by that, I mean, like, at the age of 24. It's, But, you know, you had always heard that there was a Nosferatu remake in the 70s. But it's not like you ever saw it, because it's not like it was that available. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not like this has ever been out of print or not streaming or anything like that, but it's never anything you saw at Blockbuster. It was never anything you heard people talk about all that much. Yeah. But, like, as soon as I really started discovering who Werner Herzog was, I was just... I had to see it. And also, it's a Nosferatu movie. Like, there's a Nosferatu remake from the 70s. Let's go watch this. It's amazing. It's one of the greatest things ever made. It blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. And it was funny because I remember one time I recommended it to Nick, and he had watched, because I recommended them in pretty rapid succession, Aguirre, the Wrath of God, Nosferatu, and Grizzly Man. Yes. Because Werner Herzog is the best. But I remember Nick and I were supposed to jump on Discord to work on something together, and I was texting him like, "Oh, you about ready?" He goes, "Yeah, hang on, let me just find a stopping point in Nosferatu." I texted him back like, "By all means, finish it. I will wait. Do not interrupt this cinematic masterpiece. It's the greatest fucking thing ever made. Like, I can wait."
Yeah, and I'm so glad that Andy put me on to Herzog, man. Like, not only is he just the absolute GOAT, and I've just been diving deeper into like his filmography, and it's just, again, this man don't miss. It's just Kino every step of the way. But specifically on this, like that, it was a real game changer for me because, again, as I had mentioned, I had not seen the previous like the original Nosferatu. I haven't seen it yet. But the Herzog one, when I sat down and watched that, I locked the fuck in. Like within, like, cause as Andy had mentioned, I told him like, "Hey man, I just started the movie," and I was like, "Let me, find a good stopping point." And he said, No, finish it." So, within the first like 15 minutes, and mind you, it's kind of late too. So I was getting kind of tired, and usually, when that happens, if a movie's not really getting me, then I'm kind of doze out. I got to watch in the morning. It's just a big headache. This is not the case. The 15 minutes in, I literally like stood up like in bed and like, or sat up and was just like locked in watching this. And from, literally just leaned forward. I'm just like, yo. It's a fucking banger. Like this film is amazing. Like absolutely everybody should go check out the original one, as I'm going to do at the end of this episode. But if you haven't seen Werner Herzog's masterpiece, you need to go watch this. Like you need to run out and watch this right now. Mm-hmm. This is, and he's not even joking. I think truly this is one of the greatest horror films ever created. Like it is fan-fucking-tastic, pure cinema. As we'll get into as we go on here, there's so much to love. This film is dripping with sauce from the absolute fucking jump.
And much like Nosferatu himself, Andy was a real plague with this movie because he also recommended it to me. And I remember watching it. Thank you, Letterboxd, for helping remember the first time I watched it. It was like May 2022, so dead of summertime in California. And I think at this time I was probably sweating my balls in some apartment just watching it. And I gotta tell you, it had been a while since I saw a horror film at that time, like in that span of time where I went like, this is a masterpiece. This is a perfect film. Oh, yeah. From the visuals, the performance, the edit of the film itself. Like this film is slow, but it never makes me feel like I'm wasting fucking time, basically.
Yes.
This feels like I am locked into this world. I am experiencing it. I'm seeing the bizarre nature of some of the characters in it. I'm absolutely enthralled by the score of the film. That main theme they have.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
When it opens and there's a bunch of real mummified bodies and you just hear that kind of score, and you're just like, it is everything you want in horror. And this is why this is my particular favorite version of Dracula. It's one of my favorite horror movies ever made, and I've mentioned this before off air. God damn it, why didn't Herzog make some Lovecraft movies?
Yeah, seriously.
Around this time.
Seriously,
he would have knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, 100%. He would have knocked it out of the park. So much. I love that you bring that up because so much of this movie feels almost like, and it's kind of weird to say, but it feels like a Lovecraft version of Nosferatu because it plays up that dread of just the sickness coming and watching the world around you decay.
Yeah.
Well, also like the ancient, unknowable nature of it, and the thing is it reminds me of a movie that's not quite as perfect, but I did enjoy, Last Voyage of the Demeter, where they say, like, this is not a man, this is a creature in a human skin. Yes. That's the same way that I feel about Kinski's Nosferatu, mostly because Kinski was a huge piece of shit and probably shouldn't be considered a human being, but that's beside the point. Like, Kinski's version looks like an ancient demon that is just has this thin veneer of a human appearance over it, and it's almost like he can't properly imitate a human because he's a humanoid form, but there's still those talons and those creepy little teeth and the rat ears, and it's like he's almost got it.
I want to quickly mention, I know I mentioned this on the other time we talked about this movie, but I absolutely love that in Last Voyage of the Demeter, it ends with him just still being a big old like rat man monster, but he's got a little top hat and a cane on, and he's just trying to blend in like, ew. I love that. But yeah.
I love that part too.
What they did with Kinski's design as Nosferatu is it is, of course, it is emblematic of the Max Schreck version, of course. You do see the inspiration there, but it is still its own version, and this one looks sickly, whereas Max Schreck's Nosferatu, I would argue, looks more he looks like a rat man still, but he looks like a rat who at least still has his fur on. This looks like the emaciated rat that is rotting away because it's living at the wall of your home and has nothing to eat because the people that live there moved out 30 years ago and it's fucking dying on sawdust. He looks gross. He looks like a testicle. He's got just this big dumb fucking head and his long fingernails.
Yeah. I love his design in this. I couldn't have said it better, Marty. Like he just looks so sickly, and he really I think up until Eggers, as people will see, interpretation of this character, I think the Klaus Kinski version really embodies what we were talking about earlier, in that this is supposed to be Pestilence manifest.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like this, without it being like too over the top of him, like, you know, trying to be like covered in like boils or something like that. But like in terms of like slow rotting decay, again, a reanimated corpse, they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. Like his like weird like German eyes like really pop, and that contrast with his like the real sunken bags that they have under him. And you know, like Andy said, this is a thing trying to be a man, and I really like that. I think the Lovecraftian kind of analogy you were alluding to, I think that really is apt for it, because it is that this is an ancient, centuries upon centuries old thing that is forced its body to take on the appearance of what it thinks a human looks like, but because it interacts so little with other human beings, it doesn't have the ability to mimic it properly. So he just looks like this weird, almost uncanny caricature of a person, but as Andy said, with these bestial features that it just didn't quite get right.
Much like Klaus Kinski himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Nosferatu is a more moral and upstanding citizen than Klaus Kinski is. and we've established that
Klaus Kinski.
I was going to say, we've established that Nosferatu steals tampons out of the women's bathroom. Still a better entity than Klaus Kinski.
Yes.
But no. This, and what's great is it's paired with Werner Herzog's weird little visual expressions, where like in Nosferatu's castle, there's a cuckoo clock with just like a skeleton man that pops out that does a little dance. And it goes like,
yes.
He's like, well, because like what else are you gonna have if you've lived 700 years and it's like you watch the Crusades happen? Like, you know, you're like
cuckoo clock.
Yeah, exactly. But there's that great moment again where Herzog is one of the greatest filmmakers who has ever lived, like 100%. And he has that weird Tom Cruise insane energy where he will do whatever is needed for a film and no one will be able to tell him no, which I also really respect. And what I love about it is that for such an auteur to set his sights on something that he didn't initially create, you know, he had to have seen something special in that story. And what I love about it is that this is not like some sort of huge budget Hollywood remake of it. It is basically, they have like the same resources and techniques as the original film. And so like there's a lot of this movie that is like handheld and very much like almost documentary style. And I've mentioned this before off air, but it's not documentary style like it's not documentary style the way the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, where it feels like you've almost found this lost footage. Right. This is documentary style in like you feel like the uncomfortable third person in the room of any of these scenes where you're like, should I step outside and give you two a moment alone? Like,
there's some great.
Don't ever step outside and leave Klaus Kinski alone with somebody. By the way, don't ever do that.
There's some great shots in this movie of just Nosferatu kind of roaming the streets of this village. The most iconic, of course, being this big close up of him just kind of looking directly at the camera in that direction.
And then he like runs away with his arms outstretched, and he's like,
and then there's another sequence where he just goes, and he's just tweaking off into the distance because the sun's coming up or whatever. And
him prancing into the night was amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, it's just like that is the documentary feel for me, where it's like there's moments of this film where, of course, the plot has to progress, but then there's almost these weird, just interstitial moments of just Dracula being or he's called Dracula in this movie. Oh, Dracula being a little menace. He's just walking around. And then you have Lucy, played by Isabel Adjani, who just like, and this will get more into the sequence later on because this is such a fucking fantastic. Oh my god, it's such a great scene. But there's a part where she's just walking through town, and again has that documentary feel of like you're kind of following her around a little bit from a distance at first, like a bird's eye view, and then you get up into it of her just going through the middle of the town square after like most people are dead, and people are just dancing because they know they're fucked. They know the plague is coming. They're dead, but they're just going to enjoy the rest of their time.
It's Mask of the Red Death. 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
that's my favorite scene in this entire film is the dinner, the almost apocalyptic like dinner scene at the very end, or just really that entire sequence when the plague is really setting in. What is
come drink with us? We all have the plague. We're gonna enjoy the rest of our life.
Oh my god! I mean, it's just this like it's almost this like crane shot, like just kind of flowing over like the city, like a bird's eye view of the city, and like as you're passing through the cobblestone in the town square, you just see everything slowly become like pandemonium and like decay. Like at first it starts off, it's kind of empty, and then it becomes more populated. And then all of a sudden, like animals, like livestock and chickens and shit are running around in the street. And then you see people like partying and like just having these like borderline orgiastic like festivals just like in the streets. And then we end on this shot of this like group of people outside eating at a dinner table. And
there's rats all around them, all over their feet.
Yeah, like you see it first, it's just like them eating, and then rats fucking everywhere, crawling on the actors, crawling on the table set in the dining ware, and then there's just like a cut, and then everyone is fucking dead.
Yeah, they're all gone.
And the rats have taken over. The rats are swarming all over this rotting food.
Do you want a sad fun fact about the rats, by the way, in this movie?
Oh, God.
I got to learn because I was just like, oh, look at the Wikipedia page. Okay, most of those rats are not, in fact, brown. They're white. So the way the Herzog was like, okay, how do we make the rats brown? Oh, let's put them in, let's get some, like this oil, like this thick, like ink almost on them. How are we going to do that? We have to put them in boiling water for a little bit. Oh, half of them are dead. Just throw those out. Let's get the other ones out, though.
God, really?
That is the 70s for you, buddy.
Fucking hey.
You know what? Coppola was slaughtering a real buffalo.
That's true. That's true. So, just
in the 80s, they were...
Oh, go ahead.
In the 80s, they were putting real human skeletons in the poltergeist pool, so it's...
And Herzog was filming mummified people at the beginning of this movie, so...
that one I don't even think is in that bad taste. Like, those are like...
No, but it is just kind of funny, because the way he described it on the commentary was that they had them in glass cases already, like, just on display, and he basically just, like, paid them to essentially just... He himself picked up the mummies and put them into place himself. So I just imagine him just lifting up these mummified corpses, just get them in the shot.
And he would do it. He would do it.
Yeah, well, again, we'll bring this up about Werner Herzog, but this is the guy who, to make his first movie, stole a camera from, I think, the university he was going to, or somewhere he was employed or something, but he stole the camera, and he basically said, like, well, I knew what I was going to make with it would be worth the crime of stealing it. Like, that's a fucking filmmaker right there, where he's like... He was basically, and I think he's even described it, and I'm sure I'm vastly misquoting him, but he's basically like, if you're starving, you steal food because you need it more than the person who's charging for it. It's the same thing. He equated that to filmmaking. I'm like, now that's a filmmaker right there. That's an artist. Where he's like, you know what? I'm going to commit a crime because the art that I will make with this is worth the crime being committed. That is, and you know what?
Out of context,
he's right.
Worse, but yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, exactly. He's right, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's right. Like the world would be worse off. The world is better off with that stolen camera and Werner Herzog's art than it would be in the camera being sold legally and Werner Herzog not making a movie.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is also just a reminder for everyone to go check out his book, Every Man for Himself and God Against All. Because I expect nothing less from my fucking goat with a banger.
The hardest title ever written, on any book ever. Yeah.
Ever. But just to bring it back to the movie real quick, I can't stop gushing enough. But I think that scene that we were referring to, the one that with the Hieronymus Bosch like energy in it, just like the apocalyptic like plague rolling through. I think that perfectly encapsulates not only I think this film and its greatness and why it is a genuine masterpiece, but just in general I think captures the essence of what a Nosferatu specific kind of film needs to be, and it's that scene right there. You need to perfectly encapsulate the plague and the just other almost surrealist nature of it. Again, I really, really do like you guys alluding to that kind of Lovecraftian nature of like this character and specifically in the energy of this film, and how this impending dread and the otherworldliness of this evil, this ancient evil, this unknowable thing from time, Amorium, just kind of like creeping its way back into civil society, and literally infecting everything and bringing it all to decay. I think it's a very apt analogy for it, and I think that's perfectly summarized in that scene that we were talking about. Like that to me is what solidified in my mind, like, oh, this is one of the like greatest of all times. Like this film is going to go down like to me as like one of the best in the genre, period.
Oh yeah.
If we can go.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Martin.
No, I was going to say there are so many great moments throughout this film that gave me that feeling, and most of them are just like scenes. Like Kinski's performance in this just knocks my socks off every time I watch it. Yep. I liked hearing that apparently like this was like the most normal he's been on a film set was during Nosferatu. Like he was just like being an amiable, just like, all right, yeah, let's do it, guys. Like he was just into it, and I just loved that was because he was already playing a character that was like just like him, a creepy little rat man. But he really just took on the persona, and I love this version of Nosferatu. And this is probably also like why I love Coppola's Dracula, is because it is a tragic figure more so than a straight up monster.
Yes,
but Nosferatu in this is, of course, it's still a monster, but he has that air of just like, yeah, I've been alive for a really long time, and I fucking hate it, but I don't want to kill myself, so I'm just going to keep doing my thing, I guess. And you could see it in his eyes, the emotion that just comes through the eyes in his performance, the glassiness of them in certain sequences. Where he's just like, do you know, he's like, it is great to be able to live and experience death than to continuously know death is never coming for you.
Yes, and I think one of the important things about this movie too, and in regards to his performances, we've talked about this off air as well, is that he channels very much the operatic and theatrical performance that Max Schreck has, but put in a more measured. I'm not going to say modern because the movie's almost 50 years old, but more modern filmmaking techniques and sensibilities. It's still a very meditative movie, very slow paced, but it's like if you put that in a non-silent movie, but that same type of performance, he becomes probably the best representation of the Grim Reaper that's ever been seen on screen. Because there's a moment in here, one of my favorite moments, I think the one we just talked about with the rats on the table is probably my all-time favorite moment from this movie. But another scene that's up there is where it's like, and this is recreated straight from the Murnau film, but like he's at the end of the hall, and he's just walking towards the camera, and he's framed by the hallway, and he just walks, much like, De Niro and Cape Fear, right up to the camera. His face is right in the camera. Then the next cut, you see him standing directly in the doorway of Jonathan's room, and Jonathan's awake, like looking at him. And like when I saw that, that is I'm not being hyperbolic. That to me is scarier than most things I've seen in other horror movies. That's one of the scariest horror movie moments ever, because it's like he's walking towards the camera and you think like it's so out of context. You think like, oh, he's just walking through the castle, but then you're like, oh no, he's in his room. Like that's fucking terrifying. And because he moves through the frame so purposefully and so slowly and so intentionally, like that scene on the I'm just gonna call it the Demeter, but like where the guy has like lashed himself to the wheel because he's like, I'm gonna get this thing into like all my people are dying. I don't know what's happening. I don't have time. I know I will be dead by the time this comes around. And then there's that shot that's recreated directly from the 1922 version where it's like looking up from the cargo hold and he's walking and you see the like sails behind him. But that is like, in the context of this film, because the silent film, again, it just can't communicate this as well as, it's just a more cohesive movie where the sound and the story are more cohesive.
A movie that isn't hindered by the limitations of the time so much.
Exactly. So, like, the idea of, like, you're stuck on this boat. And it's coming for you. And you know what? You might get taken tonight. You might get taken 3 nights from now. You might get taken 12 hours before it comes ashore. But like you're just there and he just sort of walks and he sets his eyes on you and that's it. You're gone. Like you're not going to survive this. And that's very much because again, in a modern movie or in a lesser movie, that's when Nosferatu would do like the big jump at the screen and you'd see the big fangs coming at you. Yeah. No. And that's like very much like one of the creepiest parts of the whole movie is when Jonathan cuts his thumb and it's bleeding and he's like, oh, it could give you blood poisoning. But like you could see him trying to pull himself away. He goes, oh, okay, fine. I guess I won't. And but he turns around and like just grabs him. But like he knocks the chair out of the way and just marches towards him.
That's such a great moment because it's still creepy and a little, it gives you a spook, but what makes it work is that they don't do what every hack filmmaker would do in that moment and cut to a close-up of him coming at Jonathan. They just leave that camera kind of far off from the action and he's, oh no, I don't, we can get that, you're gonna get blood poisoning, okay, fine, whatever. And then he goes at Jonathan. We're still maintaining the same shot at the same distance. He sucks on his fucking thumb a little bit and Jonathan pulls away. Then he starts to back up and then fucking Kinski does that great bit where he grabs the chair and fucking just slams that shit into the table and just kind of walks towards him. And you're still at the same distance. We're not cutting. We haven't moved around. It's just one shot. And it works so well and so fucking creepy.
The thing is with Klaus Kinski's Nosferatu is like he's a pretty tiny dude. Yes. So you look at him and you just look at him, you're like, I could take him. But then like the moment you're in his presence, you're like, oh, like this thing has complete dominion over everything.
Yeah.
Like it is completely in control, and that's the creepy part.
Yeah, I think Kinski was able to obviously in addition to Herzog setting it up, but I think Kinski's in his performance was able to not only deliver just an excellent performance overall, but what makes it so special, so magical is, just like Andy said, he's able to channel this dichotomy of both. In 1 second, he is this frail, pathetic, tiny little like a worm, like a rat. He is a rat in the sense of that he is this tiny, unassuming, really kind of sad, malnourished thing, right? And then in a fucking instant, within, as Marty said, in the same scene without even cutting, he turns into this imposing and terrifying beast that just descends upon Jonathan. Like you could see him earlier on that scene. He's fighting it. He's just, I don't know. He's emaciated. He's pathetic looking. He is holding himself back, fighting his urges. And then when that primal switch like goes off and he just turns into a fucking shark and he just, like you said, slams the chair on the table and then just opposingly and menacingly just like striding towards like Jonathan and like with his like almost fucking claws out ready to consume his prey. It's so terrifying and unsettling because you went from something that was so like unthreatening to just this literal fucking predator, it's like on top.
It's like if you were stuck in a room with a mountain lion. You're like, I could take it if I really needed to, and then it comes at you, and you're like, yeah, fuck off, no.
Yeah, exactly. You're like the mountain lion. It's only like to my hip height. Yeah, I could wrestle it, like you know. But you know, it has control. It knows more than you, and it has more control than you do, and that's the unsettling part. Mm-hmm. And also, like, Herzog's filmmaking is just fantastic.
Yes,
and that's the thing is, like, I was going to bring up, if we want to start to try to transition into the Eggers film a little bit, that is, I'll just say, I see Martin as a point. I'll just say that is something Bill Skarsgård brings to his performance.
Yes, but what in a moment, because there's two moments in this film I just want to mention, because I don't want to say they break the illusion of the film, but there's two moments, and this is completely like just my brain, just like, why is that there? It's in the first 20 minutes of the film. The shot of the city where they go past like one of the bridges, I see like what looks like a rail guard that has like chains on it, and it's painted white. I'm like, that looks like this is from the 70s. I'm like, this does not look like something that would be in an 1800s village. They don't give a shit about that right now.
What scene was that? I'm going to see if I can find it.
It's during the opening credits. It's like in the first like 4 minutes, maybe. It's like one of the establishing shots of like the city, and there's like a little bridge, and they have like a rail guard that's got like the white poles and the chains connected to it. Like, this looks like something you'd see at Disneyland, not at an actual town.
Werner Herzog did everything he possibly could.
But that's the documentary thing of like, they're working with what they got. Because also, I love that Herzog mentions in the commentary while they were filming in the town, he talks about one specific shot where it's like this huge shot of like down a street you see like really far in the distance. Surprisingly, no cars or anything like that. But he goes like, we had to position the camera in a way that we wouldn't pick up the parking lot that was directly out of frame on the left. And I love shit like that. And he says such a great fucking thing in the commentary that I really recommend everybody listen to. Where he goes, filmmaking is a challenge. It is I'm butchering it horrifically, but essentially he goes like, the world doesn't bend to you as a filmmaker. You have to bend to it to a degree. You have to work with what you are given. And he goes like, I can't take over a whole town and make this movie. He goes like, but I can work around it and make my movie through it, you know? And that's like what every filmmaker has to do. So I love that he brings it up. And then there's a second part in the first 20 minutes where, again, limitations of the time. I'm sure this shit is literally in the ground. You can't take it out. This is probably some fucking land issue or something. There's a part where it looks like he's like in line for like what is it, Zippity Doodah ride from Disneyland, Splash Mountain, right? Where it looks like he's like going through the craggly like it's Jonathan going like walking into Nosferatu's lair, and he's walking.
In the cave.
It's
cave.
Beautiful. It's beautifully shot, and you know, like, of course it's a fucking, you know, it's got a cave, you know. But what made me think immediately of Splash Mountain was that for no reason at all, again, there's another chained rail guard stopping him in the road from meeting into the water, and I'm like, why would that be there?
And this I know exactly what
this does not affect the film in any way.
Pray to get to him safely.
Yeah, I'm like, this stuff doesn't affect the film in any way, but it's just funny little things where I'm like, why that wouldn't be there, but it's just so funny that it's like, oh, it's like a little safeguard for you, you know, for your traveler going on your way to Splash Mountain.
It's so funny.
Mr. Herzog, I hope someone got fired for that one, for that boner, Mr. Herzog.
I'm so glad you actually brought that up, Marty, because my two last things of peace I wanted to say. One of them is directly related to that scene.
Okay,
so cool. Unlike some fucking nerds on here, I didn't notice that because I was just appreciating the film. But that I love the early on, again, this film hooked me instantly, made me lock the fuck in. And one of the contributing factors to that was in the opening, because it's kind of a slower opening, but the establishing shots of the village and the kind of like pathway leading to the forest and the hills that eventually lead to that Roma village that Jonathan enters, and then him going through that river, like cave with the river flowing through it, leading up to Dracula's castle. Those two shots right there is where I knew I would fucking adore this film, because they are establishing shots, they're landscape shots, but the brilliance that is Herzog, he frames these in such a way, and combined with the color correction and the music, creates such this alluring and dreamy atmosphere that you're instantly like lulled into like this world.
Yes.
Like you
much like Nosferatu lulls you into his world when you get there.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. No, almost exactly to that point. Like you are seduced. I know Dracula. We were talking about how Dracula is more of the seductive type, but that is still an element present within any of, I think, the interpretations of Nosferatu early on, where there's this weird miasma that Nosferatu produces that like just kind of not seduces you, but it definitely lulls you into this false sense of like dreaminess. And the way I think of it, it is not, if Nosferatu is the plague, he will hit you with the symptom of like a fever dream, right, or like the delirium that comes with being sick before you realize that you're rotting away in bed. And right, it's very apt that it happens in the beginning of the film when the infection first begins. And that's how I felt during that sequence of just seeing these beautiful landscaping shots and this creepy but like really dreamy music, and the color choices that they went with when they were for all the shots. You just really, and then there's no talking. It's all just kind of like the camera panning, following Jonathan on his journey to Count Olaf's castle, and you just kind of are with him, and you're like you almost like you're going to like a fairy tale land. Like he's going on this journey, and as he's traveling into the unknown, things just become off. You know, and even by the time he gets to the Roma village, like things are just, something is not right here, but you don't really get the sense of danger just yet because you're just lulled into this false sense of like dreaminess and not security, but like not immediate danger, you know? Right. So that's one thing I really had to nail on. Because it's just, one, it's amazing, and it just goes to the film's brilliance. But I think that's such an important aspect of the style and the sauce that Herzog has in this film. Of like, it's, you don't, everything feels really surreal. Even once Kinski as Nosferatu gets to town and everything goes to shit and everyone's dying, it still doesn't feel like real. Like I said, it's like the Hieronymus Bosch sequence. It's all just this weird fucking fever pitch.
Yes. And go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Martin.
No, go ahead.
No, my point was going to be to the Eggers version. So,
okay. Well, then on that point, because I want to mention these two beats because I love that it continues kind of the spread of this plague and how it's not going to go away. I think that's such a creepy implication by the end. Is like, out of context, it's just kind of funny to see Jonathan like with his little vampire things, like, I have work to do.
Oh yeah, at the very end.
Yeah, it's out of context. It's pretty funny, but in the context of the film,
I have female bathrooms to get into.
I smell fresh period blood. I love.
We're gonna have to clip that audio.
Yeah, that's gonna be on the soundboard now. I love that the ending of the film has him riding off on horseback into the desert, and you've got the storm clouds brewing, and it's kind of that feeling of like, it's just going to keep going on. You think that the great evil is dead and that the world can finally move on, and Lucy sacrificed herself to save the world, and it's like, nah, just move on to the next guy now, and off he goes. And I love how horrifying that is. And again, very Lovecraftian. I love that shit. And then I don't know if they ever kill off the Renfield character, or he just goes away.
He just goes like insane. He is insane already, but like he just remains like the lunatic.
But that's there's that great part where like makes me laugh my ass off because it's great out of context again. Is that when he finally gets to Nosferatu, he comes up to him like a little puppy, and he's all like, "Master," and he's all rubbing himself on him, and Nosferatu's like, "Ugh."
Yeah, it's like, just fuck away from me.
Fuck off of me. And he goes like, "What should I do, Master?" And he goes like, "Go up north to that town, please." And then he says like something like, "The shadow of death will follow you." And I think the implication is that he's going to go to another town, spread the plague there essentially, or spread the word of Nosferatu or whatever, the demon is coming, whatever it might be. But I think that's just another further implication of how that plague will continue to spread. And I don't think they ever kill him in the movie, so it's going to keep going.
No, they so Renfield he scuttles off. So like you're exactly right, Marty. When Nosferatu, when he's done being like, get the fuck away from me, you creepy little imp, he shoos him away to go to, like you said, go up north. So that is the other implication, as Vampire Jonathan at the end of the film goes off to the desert. Renfield is fucking off somewhere in the Yeoman country, just spreading the plague there. But much like the last point, Marty, I'm so glad you brought that up too, because that's my other final thing I want to say, brother man, and that is I love Renfield in this fucking film.
Great.
It is a well-known, established fact that one of the criteria here on this show of your film being absolute banger status, Kino, and having sauce is you gotta have what? That's right, weird guys. Yes. And nobody fits that better than Ronald Topper's Renfield. He is fucking A1 in this. He is so insane and unhinged. It's fucking beautiful. He's this tiny little flea man, and he just starts losing his fucking mind. He has like these creepy, like big old bug eyes. He's just so perfect for this role and embodying it in his performance. I can't adore him enough. Like, he is certified guy. He's just a weird little guy.
Absolutely.
And that's insane.
From the very first scene, he's like laughing to himself and he can't hold it back, and he looks really moist for most of the movie.
Yes, because it's one of those things where it's like, this is 100% dreamlike. Because if you walked into a room and some guy was like, "I have an idea where we can send you. It's so far away, and your wife is here, and I heard it's her time of the month, so it might be a good time for you to get out of here." Like, you'd be like, no, I'm good.
He is that deleted scene of Tim Curry in Scary Movie 2, where he's like, "Is it titties? Is it pussy? What?" He is that.
Yo, Marty, we are on the same fucking wave, bro. Because get out of my head, dude. Because I literally was just about to say, I'm like, I love Ronald Topper's performance, because he's like a tiny, like if Tim Curry pinched off a part of himself and it like grew into its own little homunculi, it would be Renfield in this movie. He's like this moist, bug-eyed little fish guy, and he's so fucking perfect. I love his creepy little laugh. Like Andy said, it's so over the top, where it's like any normal person would be like, I think I need to kill this guy with a hammer. Like, you know what I mean? I think
exactly.
Like, there's murder this guy, because he's a fucking creep. But it's so good, especially when he comes back and becomes like, after he escapes the loony bin, and he's just like this just delirious, fucking animal, like feral looking little rat man. It's so good. Yeah. I truly cannot praise Renfield's performance in this film like enough. Like he's one of my favorite aspects of this movie, great. And he doesn't even have that major of a role, but it's just when you see him, I just start cheering on the screen.
It's fucking great. And now we will let Andy segue into the next movie, because we've been dicking him around for like 15 minutes.
Sorry, brother.
No, it's okay. It's okay, because there's a lot to talk about. It's Werner Herzog's fucking amazing 1979 horror epic. But like, we should probably talk at least briefly about Robert Eggers' 2024 amazing horror epic, because the best way I can describe it, having seen the film, is that if these are all dreamlike in their different ways. If F.W. Murnau's is sort of like a weird fever dream, like from the past, and Werner Herzog's is almost like a weird surrealist fever dream, Robert Eggers is the first one that has turned it into a true nightmare. Yes. Like, this is the first time that everyone is fucking terrified of Nosferatu. Because the thing is like, Nosferatu comes to the town and people are like, what's going on? Why are all the little cans with the used tampons in the women's bathrooms, why are they all missing? Like, that's like what happens in the first two, but in this one, it's like, it is a nightmare that you're walking into, and Nicholas Hoult does a fantastic job carrying a lot of the fear. Like, a lot of this movie is on his shoulders, because it's just him and Bill Skarsgård. Bill Skarsgård is amazing. The thing is, like, we could go through all the different things about this movie that we like, but I feel like that's almost better saved for like a review episode. What I will say is that it is completely Robert Eggers' version, and it brings another dimension to the story in a way that is all its own, but also completely in conversation with the first two. And this probably is, Nosferatu is probably the cinematic property with the greatest success ratio because it is 3 for 3 and all 3 are genuine classics.
Yeah. Yes.
It is yeah.
In
batting 100.
Way, yeah, like I'll take your word on like the first one, obviously, like having not seen it yet, but as someone who has also seen Eggers' Nosferatu, and we can talk a little bit about that story time in a second. I completely agree with you. Like, you know, the Herzog one was fantastic. I only assume the original is a classic for a reason, and then Eggers is a genuine like a modern masterpiece. Like it's I'm really curious to rewatch it with Andy when it releases, because we saw an early cut of it, but I'm genuinely curious to see if they changed much, because I hope they didn't. When we saw it in that early screening, it was a fucking surreal experience. I was like, whoa, this was so fucking good in its own unique way. And like Andy said, I love that the other two are like surrealist kind of fever dreams. This one's a genuine nightmare. Like this is a true to life horror film. There are moments in this film where I'm like, the hair on the back of my neck was fucking standing up. It was so fucking good, dude. But that's I just can't emphasize enough, people. We're gonna obviously release this episode around the time when the film releases, so please go out in theaters and see this, experience it. This is one of the best films of the year, and I think one of the best films in the last decade, easily. Just can't glaze this film enough.
Yes, and I guess we can bring this episode to a close with one of our fun little anecdotes from the screening.
Okay.
Don't you think, Nick?
Before we talk about that and that guy, I just wanted to kind of tee up this real quick. So, little story time. Me and Andy, as we had mentioned, we had seen this early. So, Andy can explain exactly how we got that incredible opportunity to go watch the early screening of this film, and even our brief interaction with Robert Eggers himself. But we saw this film about a year ago in an early screening,
October of 2023, 14 months in advance. We're gonna rub it in because it's not just to you, Martin, but to everyone.
Sorry, Marty, you had to fucking be there, buddy. We saw an early screening of this, and we're instantly blown away. We had to sign an NDA and everything. We're only able to talk about it now because the early reviews have already dropped, so we're pretty sure we're in the clear to be able to talk about it early. And I
don't have enough money for them to sue me for, so come at me.
Getting a fucking dime out of me. I'm sorry. You can take my debt. That's about all as much as you're gonna get.
What do you fucking want? A Plan 9 from Outer Space poster? You got it. That's about all you're gonna get.
Exactly.
Would you like Blu-ray copies of the other two films? That's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly. I got a DVD from the bootleg. Here you go. But the film, I'm really, really curious, and we probably should have to circle back to the Eggers film like in a later date, just to kind of compare it from our experience of when we saw it originally, and then to see what they changed in the theatrical cut, which I hope isn't too much, because again, it was a fucking masterpiece when I saw it. But I will say this real quick, very briefly. Nicholas Hoult, amazing performance. Bill Skarsgård, fucking incredible. One of his best performances, I think, of his career. His costume design is absolutely a fucking one. Then I would say this: there's a cameo in the film, not really cameo, but there's a cast member in the film that we were shocked was in the film. So I'm not going to even mention who it is, because I want people to go into it being surprised and happy to see him. But Lily Rose Depp, phenomenal performance.
Horrific. Yes. She's a great actress, but obviously when this movie was announced, it was initially announced with Anya Taylor-Joy in the role,
staple.
Which is, of course, who doesn't want to see that? It was also announced with Harry Styles, I think, in the Nicholas Hoult role. So that is like a major, blessed timeline. Obviously, Anya Taylor-Joy would have been fantastic as well, but I was blown away by how good Lily Rose Depp is. Because I'm not even saying this to be like a dick. The only thing I had seen her in previously was Yoga Hosers. Yoga Hosers. So I was like, oh, yeah. It's fantastic.
The only thing, so I will say this real quick before we get to our little anecdote, but I'm humble enough to admit that I definitely was going in disappointed and doubting Lily Rose Depp's performance when I found out that she was in instead of Anya Taylor-Joy, because at that point, only thing I knew of Lily Rose Depp was the show that she did with the Euphoria guy in The Weeknd.
The Idol.
The Idol, yes, that was the only. That was the only thing I was familiar with her career-wise. So I did not have high expectations. let me tell you, I owe Miss Rose Depp a huge apology because I'm not gonna say she carried the film because everyone's performance across the board is fantastic in this film. But she is truly like the star. Like as much praise I can give Skarsgård and his performance in this and how great Holt is in his role. Lily Rose Depp is the focal point of the story, which makes it a nice contrast to the more Jonathan focused Herzog film. But she is also like genuinely like the best like character in this film, period. Her performance is immaculate. She delivers something that is like just out there, like just from an actor's perspective, from one performer to another. She absolutely kills that shit and delivers I think just incredible physical performance, not just emotional, which is there and it's amazing, and she absolutely gives 110%, but her physical performance, the possession scenes, the way that her character interacts with this half supernatural possession kind of thing they got going on, and also the very historically accurate hysterics and the way that people would interpret these like seizures or people's like manic episodes and behaviors as like, you know, akin to something supernatural. She's able to blend both of those together in such a unique and insane fucking way, you know, in the film throughout various scenes, that I cannot give her flowers enough. She is phenomenal in this film, and I truly hope she's up for an Academy Award for this, because this is an absolutely amazing performance.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is, I love that you brought up the hysterics of the time, because they really, again, Robert Eggers, attention to detail, The Lighthouse, obviously, well, everything he's done is incredibly period accurate. I particularly appreciate the attention to detail in something like The Lighthouse. This 100% continues that. All I'll say is, should we tell them like our personal story with the film?
Oh yeah,
should we?
Yeah. So this
we
has
let the people know?
Film. This has nothing to do with the film, but there was a fucking guy there, and let me tell you,
there was a guy, and not a cool guy. Not in a good way.
Not a weird little guy in a good way that we like on this show. Genuinely a little fuck that like I couldn't stand, dude.
So we got to go into an advanced screen, like a test screening, right? And so we're walking around Pasadena, right? This is not the guy we're talking about. This is the guy.
Let's be very clear. There's two different.
There's two different guys. One good, one bad. But well, so we're walking around Pasadena, me and our buddies, because, you know, you're allowed up to like 5 guests to bring for every person that signs up. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm just taking. And so I literally like texted Nick. I was like, do not make any plans for next Tuesday. Do not. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I have to call you to tell you. And I'm like, we're going to fucking see Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. So we're walking down Pasadena towards the theater. And then I just see someone walking towards me, who looks vaguely familiar, and I tell them, I'm like, guys, wouldn't that be funny if it was Robert Eggers? Starts to get a little closer. I see the rings on his hand and everything, and I'm like, I think that might be Robert Eggers. And as he walks past,
even at that point, we're like, nah, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, that's not him.
Yeah, they were all saying, they're like, no way, it couldn't be, no way. And as he walks by, I just look at him and I go, excuse me, are you Robert Eggers? And Robert Eggers just stops and goes, yeah, that's me. And I just go like, I'm not going to take up any of your time, because he's walking with somebody. He wants to get to his hotel room. I'm sure he doesn't want to be bothered. And I had no phone on me to take a selfie with him anyway. So, but it was like, I was just like, I'm not going to take up any of your time. I just want to let you know we are hyped as hell to see this movie, and we love your stuff, and we can't wait to watch it. He's like, oh, cool, thank you. And I'm like, I will see you at the screening. And then I just look at everybody as he walks away. I'm like, shall we continue? Like, it's just like, we hadn't even gotten to the theater yet, and we already ran into Robert Eggers. It was fucking amazing. So then we all get in. We get there so early, because it says like, oh, it's, you know, first come, first serve. You know, we are capping the line like when the seats are filled, obviously. And we're like, well, it's not like there's going to be another screening. Like, it was this or nothing. So we get there like hours early, and we're standing there. And then we get filed in. And the way they're doing it is they're having every single seat filled, because they're going to cap the line and there's still going to be people outside, so they want every single seat of this thing filled. So we get in there, we get to choose our spots. We're up there, we're kind of in the good seats because we were at the front, and it's in the sort of in the middle at the top. And there's this dude sitting next to us. I mean, do you want to describe him, Nick? Because he was just this weaselly looking little bitch ass dude with fucking like season 1 of Ghost Adventures Zach Bagans hair, and season 6 of Ghost Adventures Zach Bagans hair dye. Like,
it was some dude who was like I mean, he had to be like 30 something, but he looked like he was pushing fucking 40, like late 40s. Like it's one of those things
exactly.
Like, I know you're younger than I'm imagining you in my head, but motherfucker, you look like 50. You know what I mean? Like,
just more craters on his face than the moon. Like, you know.
And then with this, like, you know, fuck ass little like V-neck he has on, dude's like, you know,
I know.
He's probably like 150 pounds wet. Like he has like this stupid ass hair, and he's maybe like 5'5". Like he's just a little shit. Like he's just a little shit.
He looks like Pasadena, like, just wandered into this place, like, you know, like he's just, like he's like, well, my shift at H&M is over, so I gotta, like, I guess I'll go do something. Like, no disrespect to H&M, but like he's dressed like a fucking, like, you know what I mean, like a department store fucking used car salesman. Like, you know what I mean?
He looks like a Ponce, and like that wouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't give a shit if it wasn't for what he did. So mind you, like Andy said, we're all like sitting in like relatively good seats because we got there kind of early. But we're all sitting there nonchalant. There's probably like I think one space between me and this guy, and then he has like one space adjacent to him on his other side, and then there's a group of people down there. We're like leaning over past that guy, talking to a group of people because they're all really cool, and we're all just kind of chatting up and joking with one another. And then as we're like all talking, he's one of those guys where like he's trying to butt in the conversation. Like I turned to our buddy to the opposite of him and me, and I'm talking to my buddy who's on my right. This guy's on my left, and then all of a sudden, with unprovoked, this motherfucker like leans over and just like, oh yeah, that's right. He like interjects his opinion, and I was just like, cool, man.
I like Gundam too.
Just complete non-fucking sequitur, like unrelated. Motherfucker just absolutely inserting himself in an AV conversation. But that's not even like the real reason we're annoyed with this guy. If he was just one of those, to be like, whatever, you know, we're like, we're not dickheads unless provoked. So like we were just like, you know, it'd been fine. Andy, why don't you tell him why this motherfucker is a bitch ass little shit that he is?
This bitch ass dude. So like, obviously, because when people seat themselves, they seat themselves according to what's convenient for them. So like you said, there was like one seat here, another seat further down, and then another seat further down. So they come up and they're like, oh, we have a group of 2. Could everybody scoot down? Because there were 2 free seats in our row, right? And so it was like, could everyone scoot down so that there's just a seat? And literally, I kid you not, this guy's not even in the middle, but sort of close to the middle. He refuses to move. He just goes, but I like my seat. I like my seat. He says it exactly like that in his bitch ass voice. He's like, I like my seat. I want my seat. It's fun. I like my seat. And so he fucking the people are standing there waiting, and we're like, you're not gonna move? He's like, no, I like my seat. I like my seat. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're not even in like the exact middle either. If anything, you're getting closer to the exact middle. Like, get up and move. You're by yourself. Obviously, he's by himself. Nobody's gonna fucking want to sit next to this guy. So then later he gets up to go take a piss, and I wish that this actually happened, but I couldn't corral the people the way I wanted to. But anyway, like, he gets up to go take a piss, and I look down our entire row. I'm like, guys, let's all move and take a seat. Let's all move. And like, I really was pretty close to getting everyone to do it. But then everyone's like, no, let's not start a fight.
This is not on Andy, honestly, and it would have been hilarious, and I kick myself for not doing it. Andy really did like tell people like, yo, it wouldn't be hilarious if we all moved down, and we honestly should have done it. But the only reason I think me and then the other group we were talking to, the only reason we kind of didn't is because, mind you, Andy's not making up. He's not being hyperbolic at all. This bitch ass little motherfucker. He really did sound like a whiny little bitch. He was just like, but like, it's not fair for the people who got here. Like, we should. Why should we give up our good seats? Never mind the fact that he again still would have been in the middle. Still would have been perfectly fine. He got in
for free,
and he's still watching this movie for fucking free. So like, it was just mad fucking annoying. Like, I could not stand it. I'm like, dude, you look 50, so I can only assume you're old enough to know to not act like a petulant fucking child right now. Like, just move over one goddamn seat. But the only reason we didn't, fucking take his seat and make sure that he didn't have anywhere to sit and force him to go sit somewhere else, which we should have done. The only reason we didn't, I think, is the calculus is that me and the other people were like, well, this bitch ass motherfucker is already being like whiny and annoying as fuck. Like, now I feel like if we would have done that to him, like taken the seats, he would have crashed the fuck out, and then it would have caused a scene. And I just could not risk jeopardizing like seeing the movie early for this dude having a fucking crash out moment. So we were just like,
I can't risk getting kicked out of Nosferatu and having Robert Eggers seeing me get kicked out of Nosferatu.
Exactly. Like I don't want because if that guy ruins my experience,
he wouldn't have the
I'm
context.
crashing out.
He wouldn't have the context, so he'd be like, "Hey, who are those assholes who stole that guy's seat?" It's like, "No, Robert, you don't understand."
Robert, please. It was that fucking bitch.
Let me just talk to Robert as I'm getting pulled out. I'm like, "Hey, you're hurting my elbow."
Unhand me. What's the crime? Eating a succulent meal?
Eating a succulent meal? Exactly. A succulent Chinese meal?
Get off of me!
Unhand my penis.
Biggest fan. I'm gonna be a famous filmmaker one day, and then I'll make fun of you.
Yeah, but anyway, we can't forget. Just wrap up this little story. That bitch ass motherfucker at the end of the movie. So we finished watching the film. All of us are just absolutely creaming our pants. We're all like cheering. We standing ovation. Like the film was amazing. Everyone got to experience that. It was like just a beautiful moment. Then the kind of ushers or like the event organizers, they start handing out iPads so we can all give like feedback on the film. Because again, this is an early test screening just to kind of get an idea of everything. As soon as this bitch ass motherfucker gets his iPad, I shit you not, we're all like, kind of talking amongst ourselves. Everyone's on a good one, buzzing about it. This motherfucker, this grown ass man, looking like he's pushing 50, like puts his legs crisscross applesauce on the fucking seat with his iPad.
About that.
And then he literally says out loud to no one, but to everyone, because no one fucking asked. This dickhead is like, I didn't really like it. He says it just like that. And I literally almost smacked him. I almost fucking flung my iPad at him. Like,
because we've already seen the movie. We've already seen the movie, so I don't care if I get kicked out now.
Yeah. And he's like the whole time while we're all trying to go through and be like, hey, what'd you think of the film? Yo, I thought this was really good. Like just kind of discussing and like answering the questions on the iPad, going through like our feedback. Every now and then, again, to no one, but yet to everyone in the theater, this motherfucker would just autistically yell out like, well, I don't really like this. I don't really know about if this was great. Honestly, it was kind of like just going off like to himself, to the world. And then even worse, on top of it, his
my
iPad.
name is Zach Bagans, and I never believed in ghosts until I came face to face with one.
Like that. Not only on top of all that, like annoying shit, this bitch ass motherfucker, his iPad apparently is like acting up, not once, but like almost 3 fucking times. Like even to the point where I noticed the one of the event organizers, when they kept having to swap out his iPad because he kept going, my iPad's not working. The event organizer, she literally like rolled her eyes at him. Like I could see she was fucking done with this annoying motherfucker.
Yeah.
So fuck that dude. I hope he never sees the film. Anyway, it was a banger. It was an incredible experience. Notwithstanding.
But to wrap up this episode, if you were in late October 2023 watching a preview screening of Nosferatu and you refuse to move your seat, I will kick your ass the next time I see you. Like,
it's on site. It's on site, you little bitch.
If I see you crossing the street somewhere in Pasadena, I'm hitting the gas. Like, and I am like, I'm coming for you.
It's the number one fan of heroic efforts.
But I send your links to everybody I know every time.
You're going down, buddy. Just so you know, like it's on site. Like I remember your face. Okay, I remember your little Zach Bagans haircut, and I remember your little. I remember your little plunging V-neck. Okay, like I know exactly who you are. And you know what? I put on a few pounds since October 2023 as well. So I'm coming for you, motherfucker.
We've been holding this grudge for like 14 months. I heard the story 14 months ago. Yeah, and they're still holding on to it.
And now we have a podcast to tell it. But until then, this has been heroic.
On my podcast.
Yeah, you fucking loser. I'm gonna talk about this on my podcast.
Said every male Karen ever. Like, but on that note, everybody, thank you all for joining us for yet another heroic effort. Oh, Martin, come over there.
I have stuff. Y'all got
I have my point.
I have my point.
I got a point.
I got a point. Number one, we should quickly mention Shadow the Vampire is a great fucking movie. Y'all should go watch it. It's like fucking $3 to rent on Prime. It's fucking, don't buy the DVD. They're like $100 now because it's out of print. Buy it on Prime. It's a good movie. It's about the making of the original Nosferatu, but what if Max Shrek really was a vampire? It's got Willem Dafoe as Nosferatu. Max Shrek. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a great movie. It's got John Malkovich as F.W. Murnau. Great fucking movie. Highly recommend that. Last Wish of the Demeter is a fun vampire movie. It's got really great grimness to it. I love the seafaring horror of it. The last minute of the movie is absolutely god awful, but you can ignore that.
I disagree. It's every second of the film is great.
Just pretend they all die on the boat, and it's amazing.
Yes,
yeah,
and it's wonderful. The SpongeBob SquarePants episode. Thank you so much for keeping Nosferatu alive in the hearts and minds of children everywhere since 1999 or 2000, whenever the episode came out. Thank you so much. One more thing. I have two more things, but one more thing, Andy. Based off the timestamp that I am seeing right now, you went on fucking Twitter during this episode and you retweeted a post with Werner Herzog as the title image, and it goes, "The ultimate tragedy of SpongeBob is that one wishes to reach through the screen and help Squidward, but must accept that this cannot be done."
Yes, that was pretty fucking funny. I think that was about an hour and a half ago, probably.
My fucking goat never misses.
Never misses. One more thing, my last point. So we got Nosferatu in 1922, we got Nosferatu the Vampire in 1979, and now we have Nosferatu in 2024. Based off of that track record, we should be getting another one in 50 years, and personally, I cannot wait for Nosferatu.
God damn it, Marty. Shut the fuck up.
You made me stay up 2 minutes longer for that.
This has been Heroic Efforts, everybody.
You son of a bitch.
Thank you all for joining us on this lovely episode of Heroic Efforts. Enjoy your presents. Enjoy your Christmas goose. Enjoy the 24-hour Christmas Story marathon. And enjoy upsetting your non-horror family members with Nosferatu on Christmas Day.
You can catch all of us on Instagram at
@the_superguy on Instagram and Twitter.
And Only McFisherman on Twitter or X or whatever it's going to be called next week.
At Monte Nix on Instagram and Nick Talamante at Twitter. And of course, please follow our socials for No More Talking Productions on both Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to tune in next time for more Heroic Efforts. Everyone take care, happy holidays, and enjoy, and please go out and see Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
Can we not do another Dracula movie this season, please? after Dracula Untold, Van Helsing, Nosferatu, let's end it here, guys. No more this season. I can't do Dario Argento's Dracula. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, y'all.
I am tired of the Count's antics.
I've grown tired of the Count's antics.